meeting to order. Meeting of the Pelican Reserve Advisory Committee, on October 13th, 2 p.m. We have a quorum. We hope that Ron will join us soon. Approval of the September 8th, 2016 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes that anyone would like to make?
None for me.
Okay. I would,
I'll make a motion, we
entertain a
approve the
motion.
minutes.
Second.
Motion is,
Aye.
Aye.
and I will abstain, since I was not at that meeting. Minutes are accepted, 4-0. Financials, I think you all saw Nancy's, email concerning the financials. She doesn't really have the latest thing, so we're gonna move, very quickly over that. And this is, she's really waiting for the wrap-up of the full year wrap-up to find out exactly how our year came out. So I think we can, probably.
We'll be lucky to have it next month.
Oh, I agree. Okay, we get into the reserve study. Nancy,
Okay,
take it away.
well, as far as the reserve study goes, what I'm trying to do is work with Stephen Bloom on getting him to tell us exactly what he thinks the Pelican Preserve capital assets are and what their current value is. And he seems to be having some trouble with the records, I guess, more than anything. So what Diane had up there is a handout. I got, Stephen was supposed to give me an update this morning and didn't. So I have sent him information from the reserve study that we had done about what we had set up and had reserves against, and mentioned that we were about to take phase 2 capital assets in, and it was imperative that we get the information so that we can get straight on what we're doing on phase 1, set up everything properly for phase 2, and, oh, by the way, you know, we hadn't done anything as far as reserves yet for the lake banks, or anything with the ponds or the piping system, or anything that we might want to do reserves for going forward. So, I didn't hear anything back after I sent that, but, so I'm not exactly sure on the pond side what would qualify, but clearly that's a huge expenditure throughout the community if we don't somehow do something with that
See,
reserve.
well, we've actually been doing it for about 5 years.
You've been correcting it for 5 years.
Well, we've been accumulating funds. We didn't call it reserve.
Well, yeah, but,
But you have plans to spend those reserves, right?
Well, they're,
Or plans to spend the
Yeah.
monies you've accumulated.
at this point in time,
Yeah,
and for, let's say, the next 5 years,
yeah,
part of it depends on what happens with the bond fund. But other than that,
yeah.
I think we're fine. We have allocated the money properly. We know our expenses coming up. We're way ahead of where Gateway is as far as being on top of things. And because we had the hiatus in sales, we got half of the community that's coming to us. That'll be fine as it comes, and we shouldn't really have any problems. In other words, we know our piping is good. I don't know what the lifetime is if we wanted,
Well,
50-year piping.
Well, but that's
That's
the
part of
kind
the
of
capital.
thing.
I
It's
know,
usually the piping, and then eventually, and I recognize the aeration is gonna postpone it, eventually we're gonna have to dredge those ponds, right?
Probably 50 years, but yes.
Okay, we may wanna
Yeah.
consider
So-
including that kind of stuff, that's what we're talking about, not.
Yeah, no,
piping.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is we don't have any holes to dig out of.
No, at this point.
well, and that's a good thing, but the
Yeah.
idea with the reserve is to plan.
Well, we ought to go to a professional to do that, because I don't think ponds could do that at all. But,
Oh, no, I agree.
you know, and I would probably be opposed to putting a lot of money on today's residents for something that's gonna happen 50 years from now.
Well,
So-
what reserves do is they accumulate over
I
time.
totally appreciate it, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
But we're paying for your existing repairs now with the existing residents, so you have a good point. Start that
We-
50-year life,
Yeah, 50 years from now.
25
it could
years
be-
down the road, I mean,
Yeah, But I couldn't tell you the useful life of piping.
Yeah.
Somebody
Well,
knows it, but we don't
he's
know,
a
right?
professional.
Yes.
Yeah, nobody's saying
Oh,
Paul's
Tetra
gonna
Tech
do
knows
that,
that.
but.
No.
I wouldn't, no, I understood it entirely.
Yeah.
We need some direction on that, but I mean, I don't see a big chunk of money going into this right now out of our, reserves.
Oh, yeah, and I don't think we have a big chunk of money going in out of the reserves.
For anything.
At this point, except that, interestingly enough, John, you might talk about what came up at the president's meeting this morning, which,
Well, the main thing at the president's meeting, somebody's very concerned about the cul-de-sacs in the different communities. The roads are causing more issues there due to the garbage trucks and the heavy trucks going around the cul-de-sac. You need to repair the cul-de-sacs a lot quicker than you do the main roads of the various HOAs. He showed me some pictures of cracks that are over an inch wide, which need repaired. And if we don't repair those cracks, the road is gonna deteriorate a lot quicker, and the CDD is gonna have to be repairing that road with, I think, a heavier budget than they would if they repaired the cracks. And I was confused this morning, and I was just a substitute at the meeting this morning, but, why the CDD turned down
well.
his repair.
Well, as I understood it, and Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, as I understood it, Tetra Tech was called out, looked at that particular cul-de-sac in Monticello, and determined that the problem was cosmetic, as far as they were concerned. That it was not something that needed to be worked on right away. Now, I suppose you can have, differences of opinion on that, but that's where they came down.
Well, then, I think Tetra Tech should say, okay, yeah, they're cosmetic cracks, but they should be repaired.
Or give
And
a
here's
time-
how we recommend you repair them.
Or give a
And it-
time frame. Now,
No.
that community is one that has traditionally kept their, if I'm thinking of the right community, they've
Yeah, it's my
traditionally
street.
kept their
Yep.
Road
Jewish.
sealed and,
roads sealed and taken care of properly, and they have a schedule, I think,
Yep.
to continue, so I don't know where you guys are.
I don't know if we're in a 3-year
Continue.
cycle or 5-year cycle, but we have money budgeted to seal, which is always cosmetic, and we're sealing the road. But John, I guess my gut feeling is I'm not an engineer for roads, and I'll take the recommendation from Tetra Tech. I would hate to be dealing in opinion. I got a crack, I don't like it, fix it. That's not how it should work. You have a concern, you take it to the engineering people, and they make a recommendation to ignore it, to say it's normal, or whatever it is, and we follow that direction.
All right, a recommendation to your community. We have the same issue in ours. We also do our own cosmetic repair, cosmetic seal. We are sealing them this year, but we're putting a lot more money into the cul-de-sac.
And I'm okay with that if that's what the community chooses. If my
But
community
that's
chooses
a
to do that-
recommendation, a technical recommendation. I suggest you guys get that.
We get it from Tetra Tech, that is.
Or
that's
get it from the
engineering.
guy that's doing your sealing.
No, I don't want it from anybody else.
I agree.
want a Tetra Tech. I want a fair broker that has no equity in it. They walk out, give you an engineering judgment, that's what we pay them for.
I am surprised that, based on the pictures I saw, that they did not recommend a repair, whether it would be because it was
That's what
severe
we pay it for,
cracking.
John, I agree. I may not
Severe
like it, I may
cracking.
not agree with it. My nickel's worth is, that's why we have it.
Were you aware they came out?
Yeah, absolutely.
And John, in the past, because of what the garbage trucks have done, some communities, ours specifically, have gotten, both the garbage and the recycle guys to actually pay for repairs. They have patched and they have sealed. So,
Oh, I never knew that.
yes,
That should be,
the cul-de-sacs got the worst of it.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so-
we're doing the same thing
Mhm.
this year. Okay, that's an issue I'll.
Yeah.
Well, again, I have no
HOA.
problem, if my neighborhood votes to repair it and they wanna put the money on it, I'm okay with it, and I'll pay it as a homeowner.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a CDD issue. As long as Tetra Tech
That's the
said-
reason I brought it up at this
Yeah.
point. Is it a CDD issue? It seems to me it's a maintenance issue as
Definitely
opposed to.
maintenance.
Well, if it's a CDD issue, then we defer to Tetra Tech, that's what we pay them for.
Yeah.
And if they're saying not at this time, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, let's put it this way,
Okay.
they said CDD would not do anything at this time, and most of the neighborhoods, mine included, we do our own.
We do ours
Yep.
too.
We do our own. But at some point, obviously,
Mhm.
they are included in the capital expenditures, because the road has to.
Well,
has to
having
be
just come
replaced.
here from Michigan, they would die to have my cul-de-sac. I hit some pot roads that you could almost lose your car in.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
So back to the general reserve study. We will have to at some point make a decision on, and I have no idea who's out there to do it. The guy that did our first one has, I guess, been keeping it updated. I don't know whether he's charged us for it, but it looks like he's been keeping it updated. But I don't know, is he?
Was that the resident?
Huh? Yes.
That's, yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
resident of Pelican.
Well, that's a great resource for us.
And I don't know if he feels qualified to be able to bring in the pond stuff and so
Yeah.
forth, or if we think he's qualified. But clearly, we need somebody very qualified to be looking at it, because when we add the phase two in, that's an awful lot of capital assets to have to reserve for.
Yeah, I think it'd be appropriate to ask him if he's comfortable with doing
Who,
ponds
Jack?
and piping,
I-
whoever it is, I
Yeah.
don't.
Phil knows him, so. I
And if he is, then we probably ought to engage him. We're happy with his work product the last time.
Well,
Well,
Yeah.
if we weren't,
Yeah, I'm a little, I'm
Yeah, I'm
kind of
this
on,
way on it, too.
Okay.
on whether he's
I think
the
you
right
bring an
guy.
outsider in.
I don't
Well,
care
in my
either way.
opinion.
Well, it's got nothing to do with
It could be a
insider.
bidding process,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, it could, nothing to do with insider and outsider. It seems to me that we ought to, we get, Severn Trent to,
Investigate known competent firms,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Find us a
April-
competent
No problem with
firm.
that at all.
I think April could,
April and I talked about this a while ago, and she's suggesting we use somebody called Reserve Advisors. Now, Reserve Advisors, the same time we had ours done and the CDD board approved it, Reserve Advisors did one supposedly for the gateway assets. And when the board took a look at the product they got, and I cannot for the life of me remember why, they threw it out and contested it. So, I don't know who else is out here other than our guy in Reserve Advisors, but clearly there have to be people.
yeah, who do this kind of thing.
Nancy,
No expertise, whatever the professionals are, I'm okay with whoever.
Just briefly read your letter now. The lift stations, in Old Pelican, that has to be, I would assume, the city.
I think it is the city.
Okay.
I know.
What about New Pelican with the utility area being part of the CDD now?
That's the CDDs.
The lift stations would be the CDDs?
They have, I think it's all the CDD.
Okay, all
So-
right, but the Old Pelican, I mean, the lift stations should not be CDD, that should be city, in Old Pelican.
And I think the city's responsible, like here in Gateway, there's a big concern about the meters and everything else being out of date and not working properly. And Pelican, I think the city has those responsibilities. I know when you have them come out to look, because I've had this happen at our house, when you think you've got a leak, the city comes out and says, if it's on, if you can shut your water off and it's still leaking, it's ours. If you
Yeah.
shut your water.
From the meter
off-
to the house is you, from the meter
Right,
to the road is
exactly.
them. Yes.
And that's the way they've made that, the city's made that
Yeah.
determination, and nobody, I guess, has fought it, so.
Yeah, I had a leak and I turned it off at the meter and I still had a leak at the house, then it was mine.
Yeah,
Individual homeowner.
Yep.
individual homeowner.
Individual home.
The question that came up sometime though is the box itself. Because I know I fought with the city in Pelican Preserve, in Portofino. And I won, they repaired the box and repaired the landscaping, this was just last year. But they kept saying, we'll never do this again, we're not doing this again. Does anybody else have it on the box where the meter is?
I haven't had a problem there.
The whole box sank, and I'm like, that's not us, that's the city. The city did repair ours, but we took some fighting.
So I think there probably are issues that will come up from
Yeah.
time to time, but I don't.
Always gonna be the flyer.
Yeah.
So, we still, before we can launch into this thing, we still have to get this information from Stephen, is that, am I
Why,
in the right
my
place?
concern is that we're starting with not all of the information, the dates that I had in that email that I sent to Stephen are dates that, what was the fellow's name that did the study?
Jack.
Jack, that when Jack did it, I don't know, whether his dates, he said sidewalks 2004. Sidewalks generally came into Pelican
Yeah.
in 2002 or before, and some of them, and
But until we had a reserve, weren't we paying for things out of current budget? That's why we started a reserve. Everything that was coming up ad hoc, we just covered.
Well, except that, it seems to me, Bob, that the reserve is really not for maintenance. It's really for replacement.
a major replacement.
Major.
And I completely agree with that, but I'm saying is we were paying for repairs of whatever kind out of our current operating year budget.
Yeah.
Prior to having any reserve.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the reserve was to look down the road and accumulate.
Right.
So.
Current year repairs, it would seem to me, would still be, that's maintenance. We would
Probably,
still be doing it
probably.
out of the current year.
But anything that happened prior to 9, when we started our reserve, was it 10 or whatever?
But wait a minute, wait a minute,
Okay.
no, don't forget, our community started in, the build-out in Pelican started in 2001, 2002.
Correct.
And some of those assets are at least that old, and so their aging process starts from then.
But the first study factored that in, like the guard shack and things.
I don't know. I don't know whether it did or it didn't. How many years they assigned.
I remember seeing it, I can't speak to it over the top of my head, but we were talking about things like the guard shack replacement and the roof on it, a few assets like that as examples. And the clock started when it was built, and they said it had a useful life of 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, he had a useful life. I don't remember that he.
Because if you recall, based on that original study, Nance, the amount we had to put up for reserves was astronomical. We said, well, we can't do that. We're not gonna fully fund this. We're gonna start with a dollar amount each year, which I believe is 100. And the second year, we took it to 200,000.
Well,
A lot of what he did, and why it needs, another reason why the reserve study needs to be redone, is when Jack started it, he assumed interest rates were gonna be certain interest rates.
And they were way out of date.
And they were way out of line. That the cost of replacement was one thing, and I suspect that prices held pretty firm for a while. I suspect they're going up now, but I don't think they went up for several years. So the reserve study is definitely out of date.
Absolutely.
His assumptions are
Out of date.
out of date.
out of date, right. So all those things have to be
Should be relooked at, absolutely.
re-looked at, retested.
So that's the question, who should we select to do it for us? And I'm
Well-
open to whoever
Well,
they
we-
recommend to you.
We need to find we need to find whoever's out there, and then.
Are you gonna stay with this one and come back with a recommendation?
Does anybody else wanna take it?
Okay, we have a volunteer.
Well,
I'm hiding underneath.
Everybody else one step back, Nancy? Okay.
well, and Nancy, it seems to me that the thing that you perhaps wanna do is go to, April and go to the staff and get them to
See who else is out here.
see.
Yeah, between April and between Severn Trent and Tetra Tech, there ought to be people that they
They would
know
recommend.
who's in this business and.
Yeah, April is the one that recommended reserve advisors, and I have no idea why the board, they paid them, they threw the whole study out. I don't know how much money they paid to do it, but they said it was worthless.
You know, that's not unlike what we did with the first study we paid for. The first reserve study that came here scared us,
Was not the Jack Richardson.
and we went and got another guy.
No, it was Jack.
No, there was somebody we paid first. We
No.
paid somebody.
Oh, we paid
We
Jack.
paid Jack.
We paid
We
Jack.
paid
Well,
Jack.
Jack was the second one we paid. Jack is a resident, right?
He's a resident.
There was
Jack-
somebody before Jack.
Jack's the only one we paid.
No, I disagree with you, Nancy. When you were not here, we had somebody else that we paid.
Jack was before I left.
We had somebody else. That was our second study. First guy scared us.
I thought
For the
Jack
life of
was-
me, I don't remember.
I
what
thought
it was.
I'm not sure that,
That matters.
that matters at this point.
But,
Um,
yeah, let's go for it.
You know, it may be worthwhile if we could track back to see why you know, if this reserve group that April is. you know,
Reserve advisors.
Reserve advisors, if we could track back to find out why that was rejected by the.
We'll have to
Yeah,
after.
it did, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have Jack's old study?
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
right
Okay,
here.
sitting right here. And we got it.
And
Yeah.
we have it electronically. And Jack has been keeping it updated, and he has some ideas about what phase two ought to be.
Good.
Oh, have you talked to Jack?
No, but it's on the sheets he has there.
Yeah,
Up front?
yeah, right.
Yeah, just some,
Okay, well, so we need to do two things. Number one, you need to look into who the possible studiers are, and secondly, we need to get Stephen to come out forth with the data that he needs to provide for us,
yeah.
right?
I'm hoping that what I gave him today would give him a little better,
Yeah,
and I don't know if you've all met Philip Rothner, who's in the audience, but Philip may be able to help me
Yes.
some direction on finding people in the market.
That's right.
To do it.
Super.
Philip has experience in this area. He may be very helpful to consult with.
Yeah. Philip, can I tap on you for a little
Sure.
help here? Thanks.
Be careful volunteering, Philip, they rope you in.
So anyway, that's the reserve study. The only other thing with reserves we have to do is, I don't know whether it's this meeting or our next one, to make a motion to move funds.
That's right. Now, it seems to me that we wanna wrap up the year's financials before
First.
we do that. But yes, we need to move our 2015 reserve funds, or
Budget.
2015 actually, reserve funds, into the.
15, 16.
Into
Money
the
market,
reserves.
in the money market,
Mhm.
or,
Yeah.
Into actually.
Into, actually declare them as being part of the reserves.
okay.
Also, it seems to me, and the way it should have come out, it appears that we will have a substantial amount available for 2016-17 to move into the reserves, but that won't happen till the end of the next fiscal year. But the budget provided substantially more than what we had originally anticipated, so that should be helpful.
Well, I just make one caution.
Yeah.
A lot of times, the unspent budget is not available because we've already got, I'm speaking specifically of ponds. At the end of this year, even though I overspent $300,000 this year, still got $200,000 in that kitty, so to speak, that we're expecting to spend next year. on
But we're
phase-
not
Yeah,
touching
I'm
yours.
not touching that.
Okay,
I'm not talking
that's
about-
all.
I'm not talking about
If
that.
that's not part of it, great.
But-
Oh, sorry I mentioned it.
That's all right, but as you recall, it seems to me the number we were looking at from the prior year was like $385,000, something like
Okay.
that. Or,
Okay.
in order to make the budget come out so that there was no increase or decrease
Got it.
from the prior year, Stephen expanded the amount that we are going to put in the reserves, so there are funds available.
There's at least the 300 that we contemplated.
Oh, yes, and a
then
couple of hundred more.
a couple $100,000 more if we choose. to
If we
do that.
choose to transfer it. And that's not going into your money, that's.
Yeah.
That's.
At the beginning of the current fiscal year, 15-16, we had $685,000, and we
Right.
ate $300,000 of it this year, and we'll probably
Right.
eat the rest next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Any more discussion or questions on the reserve? Okay, association manager report and Securitas. Jason or Sarah, do you have anything to report? I have a question, and it has to do with another thing at the gate. And that is this issue, Sarah, which I believe you've seen, about how we handle real estate showings. You wanna come up and address that? Apparently, there was a problem with this, as to, do we know how
Was
that's?
it an open house or
Do we know
something?
how that's being handled now?
Mr. Neubauer called me, was rather upset because I guess a house that somebody was showing, the real estate agent shows up with their, I guess it's the MLS listing or whatever it is, and it shows that the house is on the market and says, I'm gonna go show this house. and they were denied access because they were not put on the guest list for that home. And what we've advised owners to do is if you're gonna have realtors showing your home, just you can put on there like all realtors or something of that there was nothing on there, and there was nobody that was answering the phone to allow them access. Anybody can drive up and show a listing, so the guard didn't know what to do in that case. What they're supposed to do is, like I said, they're supposed to be on a guest list that says that realtors are allowed to visit. They're supposed to show their MLS and their license or whatever. They're supposed to, and then the guard provides them with a copy of the open house rules as well as the no signs allowed rule. And then they also go and travel. If they know that there's going to be open houses, they go and check and see to make sure that they're not putting the open house signs up, and they'll remove them if they see them.
Can you put that in one of your little blips?
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah,
I
that
thi-
we ought to get that information out to people.
Yeah,
And,
we can do that.
mhm.
'Cause-
Now, simplified version, if you're trying to sell your home, and want realtors in, please notify the gate.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep,
Nothing-
we can
nothing
do that.
I think we need to do that, and, to the
Think they
extent
would
that we
do
can
that.
inform the realtors in the area.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
yep, we can do that.
But that's the procedure.
Yes.
Just so we're aware. Any other questions of Sarah? Jason? Yeah. As it's gonna be handed to him.
Do we have an update for District 3
The dwelling live,
Oh, yeah,
capture to,
sure.
I usually don't need a mic, I'm usually loud.
Please-
But
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Mike Kolditz with Securitas, I'm one of the branch managers there. Filling in for Bob French, he could not make today's meeting, but he wanted me to touch on the capture, converting the dwelling live. Everything is in motion to switch over. Everything has been capture, handle everything, put everything over to us. So I believe Bob's going to meet with Sarah and Jason next week to go over the particulars to get that switched over. That's on the dwelling live, but, I don't know if anybody saw dwelling live. I love dwelling live. I think it's a fantastic software, so
Have we
it's gonna be a
decide-
plus.
Have we decided about all of the features of it? I know
Yeah.
at the last meeting,
That's one of the things we need to do, is to,
Well, it has all the features Capture has, plus.
right.
right, but some of them were, keeping license plate numbers, and there was a whole bunch of stuff in there that I saw, and I don't,
Yeah. At what point will you present to us, the things that we're able to do with
Our
going
options,
live? Or
yeah.
what are our options?
What are our options?
Because part of the problem we've run into here is that we've had a lot of delays at the gate, some of which we were told we could, if we implemented some of the options on dwelling live, and perhaps dwelling live, just the basic program itself, would help to speed up the process for the guards getting it through the gate.
Yeah, the panels are a lot faster, the computer's a lot faster. The barcode scanning is a lot faster. It's a, I don't know if a QRL barcode instead of a regular barcode.
how does the QLR thing work? As far as, can that be shipped to, say, a guest of mine? Is that what the
It's an
intent is?
option. It's an option that's included, but it's up to the HOA if that's something you want to activate,
See,
because
those
it
are
is an
the-
option.
Those are the options. The other option that we had briefly discussed was an option that would give, allow people to, Ron, I'm glad you're here, because we're into
Perfect timing.
perfect timing. This stuff
Talking
I have
about
to do
Barbie.
again. Show that Mr. DePonte joined the meeting at,
Get lunch.
One of the other options that we talked about was an option that would give us some control over people who were servicing the homes. Cleaners.
You could limit them to a
limit
certain
them
amount of
to
days.
a certain amount of
Yes,
days,
that's
and
correct.
And they could,
Mhm.
home help people. It seems to me that we could actually give them a,
Pass. Mhm.
well, not just a pass, but actually, couldn't they be allowed to come through the resident gate, but on a limited basis? That was my understanding.
Is that RFID there?
Yeah, Bob said that mentioned in the barcodes that we assign to a car.
Right.
That they would be able
Yes.
to.
Okay.
Provide
you-
that.
we-
Yeah,
we-
it's a
we could
BAI
ass-
reader,
You're
yes.
right, that we could assign limited barcodes that say.
That's correct.
You know, you can only come in between 9 and 5 on.
That's correct.
on
With Dwelling
Monday
Live,
through
yes.
Friday or something like
When
that.
it's integrated, yes, you can do the parameters for, let's say you want to give, what's a good example? Trying to think of a good example, like UPS.
Yeah.
You know, we give them a barcode, your usual guy, because usually you get the same guy that comes in here.
Mhm.
Or the US mail, and then we shut it off at a certain time, 7 o'clock, and then they have to come through your regular gate
Mhm.
if they want to gain access.
Mhm.
Or if you want to give landscaper. Mhm.
It seems to me that we need to, at some point, give us a list of what those various options are.
Functionalities, yeah.
The functionality
Yeah,
of it.
definitely.
So that we can focus on things that we may wanna do, special things that we may wanna do.
I looked through it and it looks very comprehensive, but
It is.
by myself, without talking with the group here, to just say, well, it makes sense to limit this or do that.
Mhm.
It would be really helpful to just have it broken out and what options are.
I can send them to,
Yeah, send us, yeah.
both, I'll send
In
the
in
actual.
whatever its final form that we agree upon.
Yeah.
Would it be appropriate to have a community-wide meeting or put it in the Residents Alliance to let everybody know what's going on?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah,
in
we
fact-
would recommend
Oh,
sending
yeah,
out a
and-
letter, yes.
And in
Okay.
fact, these rules, you know, people need to understand what it can do. and
Because
what
I
these
remember how
rules are.
emotional it got the last time.
Mhm.
Big brother watching me leave, and I didn't want this and that.
Well, I don't think we're, I don't think.
Just with a few
Okay.
people.
Yeah,
I just, I know.
The first meeting is January, right?
He left.
There's a meeting in January of the Residents Alliance.
Residents Alliance.
We ought to try to target it to be available for them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
that's
well.
plenty
it's-
time.
It seems to me that we'd like to have it,
November.
yes, for our November meeting. so
We'd
we
like to
can look
have it
at
ahead of that,
Well, yeah.
but
Yeah.
for presentation to the community.
I'll get the list when I get back to you. I had that list of the options of what it has. I have that. I can send it right
Okay,
away.
And Sarah, if you would send that to Diane so she can get it out to all of us, and that we're in a position then to start.
We can discuss
discussing
it in November,
Discussing it
yeah.
at our November meeting.
Question.
Yeah.
You mentioned it does something with license plates. Could you expand on that?
Well, that's an option to put in a camera that reads the license plates.
We currently
it-
have that,
We
correct?
have that now.
No, we don't.
No, it recognizes it and throws it into the computer.
Yeah.
At
Like,
the
we
present
can-
time, I thought we photographed every.
We have,
vehicle
yes,
entry.
yes, but that's called license plate recognition. We don't do nothing. It automatically recognizes that license plate and throws it into the computer. We don't even
Okay.
touch it.
That's the
For
register.
residents or for guests?
For either or.
Not true. I
No,
had a
that's
s-
part of the new system.
That's
Oh,
part of the
it's
new
not the old
system.
system?
The old system is we have a camera that looks at the license plate and we enter them in, right, and it takes a picture.
Well, it didn't work with me. I
Okay.
had a mover that moved me here in January who threatened my brother with a gun because his tip wasn't big enough. Literally. He says, well, I'm gonna solve this real quick, and he ran to the cab of the truck and he said, I've got something in my truck that'll solve this. And we called the police and there's nothing we can do. They tried to get into the community several weeks ago, Sarah. And, the guard gate called and said, we have 2 men in a moving truck here, to give you an estimate. And I said, not for me. And I just didn't think and respond
Mhm.
fast enough. I would have said, get his license, get his driver's license, get his license plate. They turned him down.
Right, they made him turn back up and turn around.
But it
Mhm.
left me with a very, very
Because he didn't go
uneasy
through the
feeling.
camera.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
It could be the camera's misplaced. I don't
we
know
didn't
the
take a
front
picture of
gate.
his truck, we couldn't get any of that information, and the police can't do anything without it. I'm
Okay,
not
well,
sure they could do anything
As
with
we're
it.
sitting here, I was of the opinion that our system today photographed every vehicle entering.
Yes,
the
it does.
license. Okay,
Yes, it does.
But it didn't.
It enters your facility, yes.
that enters the facility.
They just never got
Oh,
to the gate.
now that got denied,
Right,
yeah, well,
Okay,
right. I mean,
So what's?
what we can do as a policy or procedure change in that case, anybody who we reject, we put on our like a DAR, a daily activity report, that we rejected 2 men in a truck, this truck number.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do that, and we can get the license plate.
Because you rejected it for a reason.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
We can do that.
That is important.
I don't know, I don't know the post orders for that gate, so, I mean, I can check into that.
Ron?
Doesn't say that.
It doesn't say.
No,
But it might be a good change.
yeah.
Of course, the other thing is you give more tip. I mean, you know, come on. Just saying.
He had $200.
Clearly wasn't enough.
They were 5 hours late. He wasn't
No,
getting
no,
another penny.
Let me understand though, now, is there a difference between what the Dwelling Live system does with the license plate pictures and what the capture system did with the license plate pictures? Is there any difference?
No.
No, okay. So
No.
we have a camera, we can take the picture.
Yeah, we can, integrate it, yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, if we get this list, we'll be in a position to start talking about what options look like they will help us, because I've received a number of complaints from people saying, you know, their home health person is waiting at the gate for great lengths of time, and if that home health person had a sticker that took them right through the residence gate, that would
Yep.
help tremendously, and would
Yep.
also help to shorten those lines out there.
Sure,
So,
definitely.
I think that would be, you
I mean,
know,
with some
very
community, I
beneficial.
mean, I don't wanna, you know, but what some communities do,
Yeah.
they charge like the landscaper for the barcode, and they love it. I mean, they pay for it, because they don't have to stand in that line.
Yeah, we would charge them for it because it's a cost.
Right.
It costs us to do it.
Right.
And they love to pay for it.
So if they want the convenience, they need to pay for it because you pay for it.
It's not expensive, is it? $10?
Nominal.
Well, some of our communities, they make out on it. It pays for their barcodes. I mean, I got one community, Heron's Glen, that charge them $50.
Okay,
Right.
thank you very much. Okay, Ron, you were here just in time.
Yes.
The charter.
Yes, as just a little history, in July 15th, I forwarded our charter that we all had reviewed and commented on and changed. I forwarded that charter to Tony Pierce to review and provide input on, comments. Since then, I've met with Tony, I've had 2 or 3 emails between us, and the latest, I had a short discussion with him at the CDD meeting, the second meeting in September. I have yet to receive any comments back. And his basic response has always been, I'm sorry, I've been very busy, but I'll get to it in a couple of days. And that's been like the 3rd or 4th, almost exact response that I've gotten from him. So I'm not sure if we're gonna get anything directly from Tony coming from us. Maybe we need to send it to the CDD and ask them to give it to Tony to review. I don't know.
You just can't get any response.
Well, it's been 3 months, so. And I appreciate he's got a big workload, I
Yeah.
understand that, but he keeps promising in a few days to get it done, and it just hasn't happened.
Okay, well, let me make one run at Tony
Sure.
on that. And if we're not successful, then we will request the CDD to perhaps follow up on that. We should certainly be able to do that. One of the things I note, that the charter calls for a reelection of officers once a year, is that right? So we may want to consider, hopefully, I was hoping we could get the charter done and then we could go through that.
Technically, we don't have one.
That's
so
right.
it's
So
not
we-
binding.
we could go through
at
that
this
process.
present time.
Okay.
Why is it we're doing a charter?
Why is it we're doing the charter?
Yeah, I mean, we've
Well,
functioned
because.
a lot of years with nothing. I mean, I'm just curious.
Well.
What's driving it?
Hmm?
Just curious what's driving it.
What was driving it was, we really didn't have a process for deciding how members should.
Well, it was,
Yeah.
it was a couple things.
Yeah.
If you look at the history of the thing, the original reason why we were created was because of the bankruptcy of WCI. Okay?
Not exactly true, but go ahead.
Well, but, and.
That's
I mean,
what led
that's-
to.
That's what the records basically indicate.
Well, that led to the
Individuals
that
may
led
be-
to the formation of a group that made a recommendation to the board. And then after
To
that,
the supervisors,
then the
right.
board officially said, that's not a bad idea. let's do this more
But
permanently.
it was supposed to be only through the bankruptcy.
No, that's what I'm saying, there's two different things.
That's my point. My point is, there's nothing in writing that says this group should continue.
I disagree with
forever.
that, there is something in there.
I don't think so. I haven't found it.
Okay.
So
But
that's
anyway, I was
one
just
reason to
curious.
create a charter. The other one is just the actual runnings of the group. You know, what are the rules that we play by? Okay, even if
Okay.
there is a written document
It-
that says
In all
we
due
exist.
respect, it seems much ado about nothing,
Well,
but go ahead. It's one
but it's
person's
there.
Well,
opinion.
and this is, so, but this is a question that I might add that you should have raised when we started this process.
Well, I did.
Mr. Geppert.
No, I did.
Uh-huh.
That's not the first time I've said that. Why are we doing it? And I thought the reason was because we were asked by April, who never even comes. I thought that's where it started, April saying, we needed a charter, and that's interesting, since the meeting's not important enough for her to even come to.
Well,
But anyway,
it seemed to me that it was worthwhile to go through, and we've just about gotten there.
Well, yeah,
Gone through
it's
the
a
process
done
of-
document.
Of
It's just-
codifying
Right.
how we operate.
Right.
okay, I just,
Well,
again,
It's a simple
Such-
document.
much ado about nothing.
Such things
It's a
as.
two-page document.
How,
It's not,
right now, we are all on this thing in perpetuity, as far as I can see.
Right.
And it seemed to me that it was worthwhile to say, okay, we should have service of a certain length, and if people want to serve, and as we did in the charter, right? And then we said if people want to serve again, they may do so. But it seems to me that we ought to at least provide for a certain amount of turnover, if necessary.
and just the procedures in
No,
terms of how do you
procedure.
elect the
Yeah.
chairman?
Well, the
And
value,
the
the
vice
value
chairman, how
to
do you do
me,
that?
and Bob and I've been here since the beginning, basically. The value to me is when new people come on board and they ask, what do you do and how do you do it?
Yeah.
There's something there to give them rather than a sit in the room and do a learning curve as we go along. So there is value to it. I agree with Bob in the sense that, I don't know how broken it is or how formal it needs to be fixed.
Well, it's
but-
only a two-page document. It's
Document.
not,
But
it's
yeah,
not
it's not a
a
big deal.
booklet.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think it's broken, I just think it's worthwhile to codify it.
I think it's a smart move corporately to have something in writing.
Yeah.
It's just a smart thing to do.
Yeah. Are you satisfied, Mr. Geppert, or?
Oh, yeah.
Tick, tick, tick.
I like being
Tick, tick,
contrarian.
tick,
Bob,
tick, tick,
You
tick,
think?
tick.
By the way, I'm gonna give myself an extra 5 minutes because you brought that up.
You wait till Bonds comes up. I'm gonna take an hour.
I apologize, I skipped over item 6, which Mr. Gregor pointed out to me. CDD systems and facilities, operation and maintenance agreements, including exhibits.
That's a mouthful.
Mr. Gregor.
Well, I got excited because it actually puts the capital asset work group report up to number 6, so that's
Yes.
why.
I know.
Is that good?
Well, it
So
does-
we're gonna
we
combine
have
the
a
two.
repeat, yes. We are repeating, yeah, we're.
Well, we ought to
number-
put 6 down at
num-
11, that way
number
I'd be
six-
first.
Number 6 and number 11, okay, go
All right.
ahead, John.
I checked with Tony last week regarding WCI's response from their legal department on the maintenance agreement, and he has sent a request to WCI's legal probably 3 or 4 times with no response. So my question to Tony was, is this because of the Lennar potential takeover? He didn't think so, but there could be a concern there. And then I asked Sarah the same thing. Did you find anything out?
Yeah, I reached out to David Caldwell immediately and I said, what's the holdup on the O&M? And he said that it was Tony, and I said, no, they're saying Chris is not responding, Chris Davies.
Chris has not
And
responded.
he said, well, he said he made a bunch of markups and changes, or requested them, and those were not on the last one that was given back to him. So he said he was still waiting on him to do the markups and changes he requested. So he's checking back with Chris Davies to make sure that he had the final draft that they were looking at, but he said that Tony had not made the changes.
Oh, I thought the changes were in there.
Yeah, so,
I mean, this goes back, geez, like 3 months that WCI had this. I'll check with Tony then on that.
yeah, he's checking on his end too, so in
Okay.
case we've got some, but he's not at all trying to drag his feet. He said he's ready to get this over with.
Well, I would think
Signed
that
off on, yeah.
from WCI's standpoint, they would want it signed before any potential,
Yeah,
I think it's a much cleaner
yeah.
issue. the only other, item is which is included in the minutes. The Exhibit B, which in the maintenance agreement is a lot shorter. This is an expanded agreement that we talked about again months ago for PPAC. And, I think if anybody has any questions regarding it, it's a nice review of our potential assets that we have, the maintenance, who owns them, who the potential owner should be, who the future funding should be, et cetera. If anybody has any questions on this, let us know, because I think, Sarah's doing a great job in, keeping this up to date, and we're trying to put future assets here, so what's coming up from WCI, what's going to be turned over, et cetera. So please review it again. This is very similar to what we had before, but if there's any questions or somebody wants to change anything, let us know. This, I feel, should be our working document here at PPAC.
Any further questions or John? Well, John, if we ever get this settled, I'll miss it. It's been on the agenda for.
Kind of like the
Forever.
Financial report.
Yeah, right, we've got kind of, we've been doing it for about two.
Boom.
Forever.
It's gotta be at least 2 years, so, okay, use of bond funds, update.
Okay. I also have had a hard time getting in touch with Tony, and finally this morning, just out of the blue, he kind of lit a fire under everybody, and it turns out that there's a quote, just about final document, that the bond council hadn't seen, I hadn't seen, and Tony hadn't seen. Steve hadn't copied us. So we all got copies this morning. Diane has an electronic copy if you wanted that update, but, I don't think you need it. There'll probably will be 1 or 2 more small changes, possibly. But originally, it was set to go to the next board meeting. It looks like it won't make that agenda. It'll have to go to the first one in November, at the earliest. But most of the changes now are like technical changes. They're not substantive in the sense of that what we wanna do and what we wanna spend the money on. So I think we're in good shape there, but I was hopeful it was going to get to the 20th meeting, but it doesn't look like it is.
And will we be able to use the $1,283,000, the entire
If
amount?
once it's approved, there's still, I don't know if a conversation has been held with WCI, I don't know if they.
I don't even know if they're going to hold one with WCI, that'll be up to the board.
Why would you want to?
Yeah,
That's what I'm
exactly.
saying.
So.
If they don't, why wave the flag in front of the board?
Yeah, so anyway, so
Yeah.
that, as far as I know, that almost, that $1,289,000 or whatever, or close to it would be ours to spend.
Yeah, and I've got it on my agenda to cover the particulars again with Mr. Guy on a one-on-one, so he's at least familiar with the track we have said we want to follow relative to drainage and et cetera. So that's on my to-do list also. And I talked to him this morning. Now, your update is more recent than Stephen, because I talked to Stephen Agape, and he told me it was all done, but I'll trust what Tony told you.
Well, Stephen thought it was done, but he forgot to copy a bunch of us.
Okay. Okay, we're still going down the same road, we're on track.
I thought it was good.
Okay,
Yeah, we keep hoping.
all right, any more questions on the use of bond funds? Okay, GSCDD board meeting report, Jan, anything in particular you wanna fill us in on that?
Well, there was an interesting point that for the first time in apparently a very long time, the GSCDD meeting ran about an hour and a half long. So I
Must have been your
volunteer,
presence. Must have
I
been.
volunteer to go to any meeting that's an hour and a half long.
In, Phil, in.
I thought that was good. I thought that was very good. Ed Tinkle brought up a lot of different points, and while they don't directly impact us, it brought up issues that we might wanna consider. For instance, it takes way too long to post the minutes on the webpage. Folks were looking for.
The webpage is broken, and hopefully we'll have a contract to get it repaired at the next week's meeting. But you're right.
Yeah, well, August, I think September minutes hadn't been posted yet, or
I'm sorry.
August and September meetings hadn't been posted yet, so if it's broken,
I think you're correct.
yeah. The district rules are unclear. There's a 3.5-inch book, but no one looks at the rules, no one knows what to do. There's no clear guidance as to who should do what. One of the interesting points that was made was, that was on rules. The operations report was interesting. There was a lightning strike at the dog park. I don't think anyone was injured. So there was
That's
this
the second one.
suggestion to put lightning rods on nearby poles.
Yeah, that's the dog park over here, not ours.
I didn't know,
Yeah,
and I didn't ask, so, policies need to be established for dog waste. We have policies we can share with you. Easement encroachment and tree limb removal after a storm. So those are all things that we're being, I think we've got policies for all of that, at least I've seen them on the internet, so I thought that was a good point. They are looking at, they've hired a consultant to create a high-level org chart. I've given a copy of it to Phil. They're coming up next with job functions, and salary requirements, but it's very high level, and that was it. It was
Any questions of Dan?
quick and clean.
Okay. If not, we'll go on to Ponds Work Group report.
Okay, we had our bid letting at a special meeting a month ago, and the low bid at that time was lakes and wetlands at $64,000. So we took that bid and the next two lowest and put them to Tetra Tech to investigate the credentials and talk to the people that had experience with these people, check their references and their financials. All three passed with flying colors, so Ponds met last week, and we have elected to recommend to PPAC that we go with the low bidder, a company called Lakes and Wetland Management, at $64,000. That's from our current 117, so it's a significant reduction. And I'm making a motion that the PPAC recommend to the board that we accept the Lakes and Wetland maintenance proposal for our ponds for the next 3 years.
Second.
Well, hold on. Now with second.
Yeah, second, now, discussion.
Discussion, okay. Because of the substantial difference in price, are there fewer services we're going to be getting?
Identical services, they think they can do it cheaper and better. And the price from where we're currently paying is substantial. The price from the two other competitors is within 10, 15,000. Everybody else was in a tight range. But our current guy, even on this bid, was 111,000. So the current supplier, even taking on 7 more ponds, still managed to reduce his price a bit. But we've given them hindsight. We had the people, this particular company, Lakes and Wetland, came to a pond group meeting. They met the people that are gonna walk around with them. They understand they're gonna have to do some spraying by boat. So no, they understand
So-
everything's gonna happen.
Bob, can you give us just a very brief outline of just what maintenance?
Well, there's a, in the briefest of terms,
Yeah.
there's a set number of visits minimum.
Right.
There's no max, but there's a minimum. So they come into the community 3 days a week. The criteria for what a pond should look like is established by the Ponds Work Group with the contractor. And we have 2 or 3 of our members go out every single month, and we visit a representative number of ponds. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's more. And if we had any resident complaints in the intervening 3 weeks, we always go visit that one. So then they come out and then they determine whether they can spray these unwanted littorals from the ground, meaning the pond bank, or whether they gotta put a boat and do it. So we clearly understood what's gonna do, and they can get boat access for everything. And then there's the third facet, which is the submersibles, which is the most costly thing to handle, and that's the Lanafla and Hydrilla. So the biggest investment for our, other than labor, for our contractors when they gotta spray sonar. So the biggest area that we typically have using sonar right now is the flowway, and that's not part of this contract. That's still one that's maintained by Gateway. So they understand everything they gotta do and how to do it.
So maintenance, my understanding, so maintenance is basically vegetation control.
Absolutely.
That's basically what we're talking about.
To make sure that ponds don't get overrun, that you don't have any tall and obtrusive things like thalia and or, what's the, bulrush, no giant bulrush. And again, we are continuing down the road that we've been on for the last 7, 8 years. It can't be behind a resident's home. If it's in a conservation area, we kind of care less. If it's on the golf course, we'll take direction from them, but we generally let it go. But the absolute focus, the time and energy and cost, is making sure what's behind a resident home is good. And the only problem ponds we have are where they're very, very shallow, and the pond would close up with nothing but aquatic growth if you did nothing. So they're the ones we really gotta watch, and most of those are in the Camarel area. When they put those ponds in, they're really very shallow. And we still have problems today with the ones behind the Adana. We just can't keep those weeds low enough, and we're always killing them, and if we kill them, then they float, and then people yell, they don't like the stuff floating. I mean, it's a never-ending battle. But that's part of the maintenance, I mean, you just gotta do that. We got a 30-day clause in this thing. If they don't perform, we have no reservations about pulling them, and we'll go to the next lowest bidder, which is Lake Masters, and they were at $74,000. So we're gonna give these people, 4 or 5 months to perform, and if they don't, I see it as a no-risk situation. It's just a win-win for us.
Now, there's a high probability that we will end up with reserves at some point.
I've been saying that for years, but yes.
Well, I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many of you noticed. I pointed it out, I think, to somebody, but, that when the HOA budget came out, for us a month or so ago, that WCI started turning over in the phase 2 area preserves to the HOA. And we're paying for those on our HOA budget. And, I don't know that the HOA, what their criteria for taking those on our behalf is, if there is anything. So where the CDD has some guidelines and so forth, I don't know that those are happening on the HOA side. So I just point out that, some of these are going.
They're already happening.
They're already happening, we're already getting responsibilities.
Yeah, I've made a number of inquiries to Caldwell to find out what they're currently paying for the reserves they're currently, I've never gotten any feedback.
So, but these are going to the master rather than to.
They're going to the master rather than
the
through to the CDD, yes.
CDD.
Mhm. Sarah can maybe address.
There's a low risk in this, quite honestly. There's really low risk because there's not very much
We can even do it.
we can even do. I mean, all you can do is hire a contractor to go through it and kill the things that aren't supposed to be there, but the invasives. And like the Melaleuca trees, I haven't seen this to be a high-risk area for us. But I would like to know what the cost is, and we can't find that out.
Well, we're budgeting for it.
And we still got,
HOAs
and
on
we
the
still have
HOA
money in
side.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
Because way back when we got the reserve, we put the money in, we never took it out, because we weren't sure where they're coming back. So even with this low bid, we still got enough money to take care of the reserves,
If they were.
if and when we get them.
Sarah, how many did they turn over? 2?
There's 2 tracks that were turned over in Matarita and Matarita 2 that included the preserves. And they just deeded it to the master. And then all of a sudden one day I was like, I looked it up and I saw it was deeded to us and I said, what happened? They said the tract included it, so it had to go with it. And they were not cleaned up before we got them.
What tract in Manorita 2 was?
I don't even know if you have a number where I could say,
Yeah,
it's
they have the numbers on them, their CA numbers on them.
CA 13 is ours and CA 14. Those 2 are the master.
When you say they weren't cleaned up, what do you mean?
They came riddled with the exotics and stuff.
Oh, I see.
So the
Okay.
exotics, so you're saying the exotics are not a problem. The exotics can be a problem in these preserves.
I'm not talking about what we haven't taken, I'm talking about the ones we currently.
Anyway, we're paying to remove the.
Yes, we do 2 events a year. We had to do an initial cleanup, and then we pay to have it done twice a year.
Yeah.
So,
So they go through and they send a bunch of guys through it with spray cans and.
yeah, but the point is.
Oh, it never should have been taken without it being certified it was
Exactly.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's always the
But-
issue when you.
But with WCI controlling the master board.
WCI passing it to WCI.
Yeah.
What did those cleanups cost?
The initial cleanup was probably 6,000 to 8,000.
Yeah, I think we ought to make a bid to the HOA should make a bid for WCI to pay that, and say as of this point on, they're good. But if we had to pay something initially to take it, shame on the HOA for taking it, but that's,
Well, I don't know.
the HOA is WCI.
Yeah, I was just saying, I don't
That's the
think-
problem.
Yeah, and by the way, this gives the point to, some of the people who say that we should be having the HOA take over the Cypress Grove roads.
Not till we're
directly.
controlling it.
Absolutely.
Not
And-
till we
and-
control it.
And it seems
Yeah.
to me that this bolsters the argument that we shouldn't do that, because we don't have any control over that board, and we see what that board will do.
Yes.
The CDD needs to do it, because that's the only way we're gonna have control.
Only
over
protection
this.
for residents, that's
Exactly.
right, absolutely.
Yeah. One other question then, in the budget, did you budget the 117,000?
Yep.
So
We're still covered for,
good.
not only taking on the 7 new ponds
Yeah.
of Track L whenever they come to us, but I believe we got more than enough money to take care of the preserves, if and when we get that to the conservation.
Okay. Any more questions, discussion on Bob's motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6 not. Bob, any more to report?
Okay, to continue on just a brief conversation on preserves, I made an inquiry in July, August, to South Florida Water Management to take a look at the main preserve and the boardwalk area, because all the thalia had died, with hopes of getting them to agree to having us have a contractor come in and remove the dead thalias that's there, and offer us something that would be low growing in that preserve to restore it back to what it was when I bought here.
What, to whom did you, ask?
I've got the guy's name, he came to a meeting at,
It's in South Florida?
yeah, in South Florida. It's no longer Maria, which is what gave us hope. There's a new name and I just don't remember it. But anyway, he came out and he met with Aquagenics and a couple of our pond group members. And he wasn't totally negative, but he wasn't very supportive. But what we did get out of him, and we haven't followed up on yet, is to take our proposal to the full South Florida Water Management Board. So that it's not just one person saying, no, we can't do it. So we haven't pushed it any further, only because we don't have the preserve yet. But as soon as we do, then Ponds is gonna go after that full court to see if there's some way we can get rid of the thalia at the end of that boardwalk and put in something that is, Florida beneficial and that South Florida loves. And to get those tall things out of there and restore that area.
Well, wouldn't this be a time maybe to work with WCI toward that goal?
I've tried.
Because they're trying to A, sell more homes, B, maybe be acquired by Lennar.
You would think they would wanna jump on this.
Yeah.
And what I heard back was, that's not yours, please stay out of it for now. Which surprised the heck out of me. Yes, Nancy, and plus, it's all dead. Would be a great time to say, okay, here's the new standard, keep it then. Yeah, I know, I thought that would work, but it didn't. We were told to get out of it, so we did. Okay, and we voted on the maintenance contract, so I'll take that to the board, and there's the next board meeting 2 weeks from today?
Next
Thursday.
Next
Week from today.
Okay,
We're
'cause-
not on the agenda
You
as
would
an
not
item.
be on the agenda.
Okay, well, okay, I talked to April about it, I think it was gonna be on, anyway, we'll handle it. The Track L. WCI finally got a hold of Morris Riley and finally gave him a contract, but no work has been done yet, so that will eventually get done. But now we got somebody that's gonna do the Track L pipe inspections. And at the same time, once Morris Riley's here doing that, we've asked them to do a sampling of what they did 4 years ago in the old Pelican to check and see how well we're holding up. So that'll all be part and parcel of their inspection report. And last but not least, phase 2 for our aeration, which means everything we didn't do the first time in old Pelican, and 3 of the new Track L ponds. We've asked Morris Riley to give us a quote for managing that entire process for us, which means they'll put out the bids, they'll check on the easements and the right-of-ways, they'll check on the power supply, they'll take care of everything that we had such a struggle with the last time we did this. So this time, rather than segmenting it and giving components to different people and then finding out we had a dozen gaps, this time we're gonna go to one management company to run it soup to nuts. April wasn't interested in doing it from the CDD point of view, and I don't know they had the competency, but she at least said she didn't want it. And Tetra Tech thought it was a great idea to go to Marsh Raleigh. So I'm waiting for a bid. When I get the bid, I'll have it for our next meeting in November. I'll bring that forward and we can vote on it. If we do, then we'll get Marsh Raleigh engaged, and then we're pretty much up to snuff.
Morris Raleigh's done that kind of thing. for
Yes,
us.
they've done it before, and they've
Yeah.
done a very good job for us. So,
Mr.
and last but
Chairman.
not least, yeah,
Question.
sure.
I tend to agree with everything you said.
Bill, might be a good idea if you,
Are we on tape?
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, if you ever need a nap, you can come listen to it.
Oh, yes. I tend to agree with everything you said, Bob. I just want to know, have we used all of our credits with Johnson?
The short answer is, they have been engaged to survey all of our ponds, and it's supposed to be done by the February of 17 deadline to use every penny that was there. I have not I have not spoken to him, but I don't remember if it was Stephen or Tyler. But one of the two got the assignment, we talked about it, and they made a recommendation, and they're the ones that are doing it for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, we're
Yeah, we don't wanna let that money
cognizant
go
of the
away.
fact that that money's there.
Very, very aware of it.
Yeah. Any
So-
other questions of Bob? I hesitate to bring this one up. Any more noise problems?
You were gonna bring up the issue regarding drainage in the different communities and what you guys had proposed.
As a way of refresher, if we get the bond funding money we're looking for, what we have said very briefly that we are trying to do is to go to every home in Old Pelican and ensure that if they have gutters and downspouts and get the water to the ground, that we are gonna take it from the end of that gutter between two homes, put it in a central pipe and take it either to a pond where they have it or to the street.
Okay. If the homeowner doesn't have gutters and downspouts, but they're willing to pay for them and get the gutters themselves and the downspouts,
Then
your
we'll,
proposal
we'll
will take
tie
it
into them. That is
into the
correct.
ground between the two homes.
Yep,
take it
and
out.
provide drainage between the two homes with, some pop-up drains, I think 3 of them per house. And we have surveyed every home in Old Pelican. We know exactly what we need to do. We are gonna let the contracts go out on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis, once the neighborhood has signed up that they wanna do that. It'll go neighborhood by neighborhood. In New Pelican, if we have, general fund '02 money left, and we believe we will have some general fund '02 money, we will go to those new neighborhoods, and again, this is subject to our approval and then to the board's approval, but if we get all that, then we will go to them on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis and say, if you put in gutters and downspouts, we will take it from the ground out and make sure your home is protected. If they vote not to, and there are subsequently problems that require bank repair, erosion repair, or whatever, we're gonna kind of put them on notice that then it's on you. We're giving you a chance to do the right thing now and avoid future costs. And if you choose not to do that, then so be it. And if those repairs then become necessary, then the neighborhood association and or homeowner, or however we get direction from Tony as to proceed, then it'll be on them.
Okay, you went to every home, you have all the inspections, and you put a spec out for bid, but you
In
haven't
some,
gotten bids.
some neighborhoods we have bids. I think one neighborhood we have a bid.
Okay,
We've been holding back. The bidders want a bid. We have been saying, no, let's not do it till we got all the approvals. I don't wanna get anybody a false start.
all right, because I'd like to take this to one of the RHOA at Portofino.
As soon as we are ready, John, it's gonna be one of these things, wait, okay, let's go gangbusters. But we are ready to go.
what he's waiting on is the board meeting where the case.
We gotta approve it, well, first money's gotta be there.
Yeah.
And then we'll formally approve what our previous
What
plan
do we
was.
think the timing is on the money?
Probably the new year.
Yeah, I'd say first quarter at the latest. We might get lucky and do it in November, December, but this thing moves glacially slow.
Bob, how many homes in New Pelican need this? I thought the requirement
they
for
need-
building was that we all had gutters and downspouts.
No.
Yeah.
Old Pelican had gutters and downspouts. Wasn't a requirement, they just did it.
In some
New
homes.
Pelican, in
It's-
most of them.
Most of them.
In New Pelican, they didn't do anything. It was an option.
It was an option.
We all had
In,
them.
well, yours,
It was an
what
option.
neighborhood are you in?
Matarita two.
Matarita too.
Matarita one, I think, was an option.
Matarita One, Early Carina, they don't have them. The newest portion of Pelican, on the other side of the flowway, everything, then will be up to our new standards. Everything is gonna be the way we want it. WCA kinda got us because we never saw the fact they were gonna build homes without gutters and downspouts. Of course, we never asked for roofs either, but they put them on. But, all of a sudden, they just left them off, and we're kinda holding the bag there. So we gotta get those homeowners to do the right thing, and then
Absolutely.
we'll try and make them, right going on. But we gotta be very, very careful. We can't spend any bond money in New Pelican. All the bond money must be spent in Old Pelican,
Why?
because Old Pelican
It's Old
floated the
Pelican.
bonds
Floated the bonds.
Right.
and paying off the old bonds, and New Pelican is not.
Okay, fine.
But we can spend that O2 money, general fund O2, anywhere we want within the community.
Right.
So that's why we're parsing our words so carefully in how we distribute this,
We dodged the bullet with the hurricane this time. If those people.
second one I've dodged.
If we got hit with that and these folks, with no gutters, downspouts.
Well, I'm getting a lot of complaints right now, that's an aside, don't wanna hold Phil's meeting, but
Yeah, come on.
people that don't have the gutters and or downspouts, and it's hitting their shrubbery, and it's washing their land, we're getting a lot of complaints that, what can we do to help them?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, right now, there's nothing we can do to help them, except recommend they put in.
They put in gutters.
Gutters
and
and
they're-
downspouts, yes.
I mean, even when we're in a position.
But
to
if I
help
have them and you don't, and your crap's rolling over to mine and
Yeah.
floating me away, then, gets to be some neighborhood tense things, but.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Just for clarification, when you said if the homeowner has the downspout into the ground,
No, they, downspouts to the ground.
to the ground.
We'll take them from there.
So that's not just from the easement of the pond itself, that's right from the house.
That is correct, because,
Okay.
because
Or the street.
we
Well,
are, the
depending
water
on
is gonna
which-
go
yeah.
one way or the other. It's either gonna
Right.
go to a pond or out to the front street.
Correct.
But if you don't put in a couple of pop-ups in that corridor,
Right,
you get a marsh.
Yeah.
right.
So that's why we gotta be able to drain it,
Yeah.
and it all
Right.
goes.
Because in my house, one of the downspouts, it's all there, but the water doesn't go anywhere. It goes into the ground and just comes back up again.
Well, and
It's-
parcel of
it
this whole
clogged or
program,
broke or whatever in there.
part and parcel of the whole program is every neighborhood's gonna have to sign up to yearly maintenance, where they check these things and blow them out and keep them clean.
Good idea.
Yes, ma'am?
Does that include our condos?
Yes. Everything. Everything in Pelican.
Old
Condos.
Pelican, Old Pelican.
Well,
Old well,
And then the plan
everything
for
in
New
Pelican,
Pelican.
yeah. No differentiation between the condos, the fourplexes,
four
and a
stories.
variety of homes. Anything else?
Any other questions of Bob? If not, somehow fell off the agenda is Safety and Security Work Group. Just like to give you a brief report. First and most importantly, we are planning a meeting with all of the interested parties to discuss the issue of how we are going to treat road signage and traffic rules in Pelican Preserve, on Pelican Preserve Boulevard. There are questions as to who has the final say about how these rules are set, and what the rules ought to be, and there's all sorts of background and things that we've gone through on this. So we're pulling together a meeting, and we'll include people from the city, from Residents Alliance, from Tetra Tech, from Castle, and Safety and Security Work Group. We're gonna have a meeting on this and try and resolve all of these things so that we can go back to this group and eventually, obviously, to the board, to get the approval of what some of the things we want to do. For example, one of the things that's been held up is we had made this recommendation, which TPAC approved, to paint stripes going over the bridge on Pelican Preserve Boulevard. It was pointed out to us that perhaps that needs to go to the city, that we don't have the power to do that, and that's the kind of thing that we need to resolve as to who has the final say and how some of those rules will come together. So we're gonna have a meeting concerning that the week after next, with all the interested parties, and then we will go on to the board as necessary. So that's going forward.
Is that the meeting that Tony said he didn't have to come to?
He doesn't want to come to. There will be
Doesn't
no,
wanna come to.
there will be
Okay.
no attorneys in that meeting.
Okay.
I think the output of the meeting, to follow up on your question, Ron, I think the output of the meeting will require some kind of opinions by somebody in the legal area, but at least we will get to the point where we know what those opinions need to cover.
Okay.
What's the date of that meeting?
I'm waiting to hear from the city guys to set the meeting, but it'll be the week of October 20th or 24th. We are continuing to, still do not have an agreement, as far as I know, although I have not talked to Tony since I returned to town. We still do not have an agreement with regard to the traffic control agreement that we want to have with the city, that will allow us to bring allow the Fort Myers Police to come in and enforce the speed limits on Pelican Reserve Boulevard, so I'm trying to push.
I've seen them in here a couple times.
Oh,
They've
they're
always
here.
come.
They always come.
They've always come.
There's nothing
Okay.
that prevents them from coming.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
what they can enforce and can't enforce
Right.
is the issue. And so, this is another issue with Tony, is pushing him to push the city to get this contract finally, set up so that it can be approved. The contract, after the contract is signed, then the city engineering department has to come in and check the signage to make sure that it meets the requirements of the Fort Myers Police Department. Once that is done, then we go to the board and ask the board for approval of the agreement. And once the agreement is approved, then the Safety and Security Work Group will start an implementation process. Mr. Decker.
I hate to ask this question. What's the status of the traffic study?
Right now, we want to resolve this thing first.
Now, the Fort Myers, as I recall from a year and a half ago, as part of their process, they were also going to do a traffic study.
Yes.
I'll put that in quotes, because it's not a full-blown traffic.
Well, that's not the
study
one
per se.
that we were directed.
Well,
to
but
do,
it
that's why
it
I
was
missed it.
supposed to look at things like, are the speed limits correct?
Right.
Is that still the case as far as you know?
Yes.
Okay, but I don't think that's gonna satisfy.
But even having that done, that's not the.
Right, I don't think that's gonna
traffic study, though.
satisfy the other issue.
Okay.
Nobody specified what that was to be. So we're working on implementing the traffic control agreement. The last thing is, we're still pushing on some of the Cypress Grove turnover stuff to do with the roads. You have one issue with the ponds, which is to get that study done. We have.
The
a number-
inspections, right?
Hmm?
The inspections.
Right. We
Video
have a
inspections.
number of items on Cypress Grove Drive, the most prominent of which is that very dangerous golf cart crossing from Ibis 8 to Ibis 9. Also lighting. We want to put a couple of extra speed signs on Cypress Grove Drive. And we think there may be places where there should be a stop sign or two. So those things have all been, we have said to WCI now officially, these things need to be done before we're gonna accept those assets.
And as far as you know, we have not heard back.
We have not heard that, as far as I know. Tony put a letter out to
Neil.
Neil, and we have not heard back. Any questions?
Does that list include the crosswalks at the corner of Cypress Grove and Pelican Reserve Boulevard? There's no crosswalks there today. Was that part of?
No, it was not.
Okay, all right.
It was not, did not include
Okay.
that.
I have one last question. If you decided, that committee decided tomorrow that they wanted to do the traffic study, do we know we'd get?
No.
There's not one firm out there that says this is what I do.
No, but I think, from what I understand, Tetra Tech has some pretty good contacts where that can be taken care of pretty quickly.
Okay.
We will come back to you with a recommendation in that regard. Okay, this background check item that somehow is on the agenda. Jan, do you have any more issues with background checks?
I do.
Okay, fire away.
So I investigated this based on the direct response from the GSCDD mandate that we provide annual background checks. So, Sarah sent me what they currently do, and from what I can tell, it's just a series of databases that they check. So I checked with my contacts up in DC, and they're like, that's never gonna tell you what changes are going on. There's no paper background form they fill out, is there?
That's the only thing that was provided. I know in order to get your license, they have it's very specific, the form that you have to fill out and pay for and stuff, and they do a much more thorough background check through that process. So this might be their, what Securitas does when they hire people, but just to get a D license.
Right.
Which is what the guards are required to have, that's through the state, and that's very thorough.
So,
We didn't, you weren't provided a copy of that, because you get that from the state.
so what my contacts in DC recommended, they said just the database checks aren't gonna cut it to find out if a security guard has kind of gone off kilter and might be wielding a gun and whatever. It's a national issue, to be very honest, and no one has a really good control system. But they said it would be a waste of money to spend doing just those database checks every time. They did recommend that we create a very simple form, and Securitas probably already has something, where they apply for the position, or if they're in the position, they can fill it out. And it has enough data on there. It becomes sort of a self-policing kind of thing. The United States has asked all of us to alert the authorities if we see anything unusual. Security guards in DC alert their bosses if they see someone behaving funny, or they've been to their house and they see a cache of guns. I just think what they told me in DC was that doing this annual check of databases is not going to make this community more secure. It's not gonna prevent someone from doing what happened in Orlando. So,
Well,
I'd be more than happy to investigate this further,
Well-
but I have a hard time just forking over money for something that's not gonna be effective.
Can we find out what the other communities within Gateway are doing? Because they all have the same requirement.
yeah, one of which is, as I understand it, has refused to do it.
Well,
Yeah.
Stony
Okay.
Brook,
Stony Brook.
Right.
Joe McConca, his wife teaches painting in Pelican, so
Oh.
you probably have a way to contact Joe, or April can give you a contact. You might wanna check with him, because he basically, at a meeting I was at, stood up and told the board that they were doing a thorough enough job and explained what they did. And I don't remember now exactly what that was.
And that's what the security officers in DC, and these are at top secret security clearances, so they have the utmost concern for all the military and government workers that come into these buildings. They said doing that, what was mandated, is not gonna make this community more secure. So I will investigate further, but why spend the money if it's not gonna make us more secure? Implement something different if we need to maintain a high security standard.
I agree with you, yeah. Now, you're saying this, form that they would fill out, each employee, current or future, has to do it every year.
Right, in that form, I remember, mine was
Right here.
12 pages long, but it states that if you notice anything unusual with any of your coworkers or anyone in the facility, or visiting facility, that you report it immediately. And I'll tell you what, they got 20 and 30 reports a day. Now, this house, 16,000 people, so 20 and 30 reports a day.
And I think, Jen, maybe also part of your investigation, we need to have a better understanding of what exactly it is that Securitas requires, and, you know, some of the comments that Sarah made about, you know, what they require and for the D license.
Well, I think she sent me all those.
Oh, you have all that?
Didn't you, Sarah?
Well, I sent you what Securitas does for their employees, but again, to get your license and renew it with the state, there's a different process. A criminal background check is done to get a D license with the state. And I'm assuming they have to renew it just like CAMs have to renew their license on a regular basis. Now, what I don't know, and I was trying to look up, is if when they renew their license, if they do another criminal background check, and then they have to pass it in order to renew. If that's the case, then the state's doing it for you every year. If their license is revoked, the employer of the guard is notified immediately. And a revoke would be, got picked up on something, you know, I would think, so
Well,
criminal.
yeah, causes for security guard dismissal are, you know, DWIs, there's a whole list. But can I give you a call next
Yeah.
week and talk about that?
Okay, so as part of your further investigation, I think you need to look at that, Jen.
I'll look at that
Okay.
further, and I'm sorry, but I have to leave.
Yep. Any other questions?
Just one other quick comment. One of the things that we did, we had an ethics concern with my job, and we had to do an annual certification on ethics. And it probably would be something that'd be pretty easy to put in place. Just kind of a controlling thing that they certified about, but just a thought.
Yeah, okay. I will check that, update you on the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
don't volunteer me for anything, Bob.
Hey, you leave, you know, what can I say?
Okay, Gateway meeting attendance schedule, I guess the only, as far out as we've gone with that, yes, right, is to October 20, which is, she says, John, you're gonna do that instead
I
of
was
Ron?
gonna do that. Does somebody else wanna volunteer? We have an HOA function, our street, I mean, I could.
I would volunteer to do that.
You prefer?
Huh? Yeah.
Okay, then I'll take the next one then.
You'll take the 3rd of November?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if the 3rd of November turns out to be the CDD bid for our bond maintenance, then I will take that so I can answer any board
And if the
questions.
bond fund thing is up, I'll have to be there too.
Yeah,
So
okay.
there'll be lots of coverage.
There'll be
for
lots
that.
of
Yeah,
coverage.
November 3rd is,
Okay.
Let John know if you're going. so-
Then let me know.
I will let you know, John,
Okay.
because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be.
John or whoever else wants to
It'll
go.
either be John, Nancy, Bob, or a big
Yeah,
party.
Some combination.
Or some
something.
combination
We could do
thereof.
Yeah, I see November 3rd, I had that, the CDD bond bid is on
Okay.
the agenda.
How about the
so-
17th of November?
I'm out of town.
All right, I mean, I'll,
Sorry.
14, 15, 16, I should be back. I could take that if I do not go.
Okay.
I'll
well,
take the
let's-
3rd.
Then let's say Bob's gonna take the 3rd, John, you're gonna take the 17th.
Okay.
Let's get into December, the 1st of December.
You know what, I don't have my calendar.
Anybody? Okay, well, as long as we're covered for November, ask you to bring your
We
schedules.
got plenty of time.
You know what,
Ask you to bring your schedules next time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have my cell phone to look at my calendar.
Yeah.
For some reason that date doesn't look good.
Okay. Let's, we'll leave that till the
All
next
right,
time. So
Bob's
we're
doing the
covered
3rd.
through the
November
7th
3rd.
the November meetings. We'll get the other ones from there. Okay. Any committee member requests?
I have one other comment,
Yeah.
and Ponds is looking into the costs of having a Pelican Preserve quality signpost. Because as I've mentioned before, we're gonna put pond numbers on all of our ponds. It came up in a discussion in one of the meetings, and I read something from Tony, that if it comes to pass that we have to put in signage for alligators and snakes, it may be appropriate to put all that on one sign at one time. So I'll just pass that out as a piece of information. We are pursuing it. We'll see where it goes.
Okay. Any audience comments? Gail?
The wetlands people that were there last week,
Woods and wetlands, yeah.
yes, what were they chopping down behind our place?
Well, they're charged with going through and removing invasive in Florida, invasive
That's, they were
species.
just chopping it.
So they're the only ones that are authorized by the
Yeah.
state of Florida to do that. They are.
Okay, and remind them,
This is WCI, their control.
Yeah, it's not ours yet, but it
This
will
is-
be ours.
okay, just remind them, not to park on our road. We were having roofs cleaned last week and all of our people had to park in the, guest
Sarah?
parking.
Sarah.
She's
talking
speaking to
Sarah.
you.
That goes to WCI, not us.
Woods and wetlands, when they're coming in to work on the preserve behind Sienna,
They didn't
Okay.
have just one truck.
they need to not
Man.
park within their private parking lot.
Okay, I mean, I'll contact who I can, I don't know who I know somebody who was wetlands.
Yeah, what they have to do is park the town center and approach that way, that's the bottom line. Yeah, if they were ours, we could do it, but right now they're not.
Yeah, they're not our control.
It's
It's
on
not
your
under our
property.
control.
Yep.
I have one.
John?
I might be volunteering for something, I'm not
Yeah.
sure, I'll ask. As a lot of us are aware, the town center and the alliance is looking at the purchase of the town center on a long-term basis. Are you following that, Phil, or do you want the asset group maybe to get involved in some of those meetings, just so we're
It
up
really
to
has
date?
nothing to do with
It's not
CDD,
us.
John.
It's
It
not-
won't be us.
It won't be related.
private entity.
It's a private entity. I don't know that P-PAC has any official
Okay.
need to have that, to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other audience comments? Okay, next meeting will be November 10th. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made?
Second, meeting is adjourned.
By the way, I have, if anybody would care for one of these, I have more in my car if you would like one.
Yeah.
I wear them to tennis every day.
Okay.
And along with that is a solicitation for a check.
Here,
That's what I tell everybody.
he gave.
$100 hats.
What's the hat say?
Mary Carol Stanley, vote.
Oh, okay. We're gonna have to get a hat, but we've already made a
Okay,
big
that'd be great.
You can own it,
No,
sure.
I understand that.
I think we're already made
But as a
two.
user, he's looking at.
I think she's gonna win by
I hope so.
Oh,
Pelican usually does a pretty good job of turning out.
may I?
Good job, Phil. Bob.
You got 1 second?
Phil, can
Yes.
Hour and
Who,
35
me or-
minutes.
this is what.
Well, once it got to be 3:15, it didn't matter.
This is what?
This is what that.
I was done at 3:15, I'm just saying.
Is that?
Phil, before you run off.
That has the updated one in it.
Welcome back.
Hi there.
Yeah, that's.
Phil,
this
I,
is-
I sent you,
Absolutely.
I'm late because of you, I sent you a note asking me.
Yeah, no, and in
Yeah.
fact, Phil, I
Well, I
objected
there-
to your
This is what.
thoughts
Probably
about
at
that
work.
particular thing.
I didn't check.
Whatever.
How are you?
We went through a whole RFP.
I had a question for you.
They have different styles, different
That's
presidents for.
And I'm sitting there and.
You need to know.
No, that didn't get
Maybe
me, I need to know my calendar. I have it written at 3 p.m. I don't just like.
What
Right.
is
I don't know what.
This is.
Right, so-
Click.
I don't have.
That's the point, the new owner, it's unbelievable. Confusing.
Well, and it's just.
Whatever.
Okay.
When we do blast emails,
And these reports
just
go back
recent
and
ones,
forth.
but like I didn't have Hampton Park on it, and
Yeah.
But I do know.
okay.
I'm missing like the new pieces.
So,
In terms of
but
not
like,
having
you
had
send
a
it to WCI, even,
There'll be more
you send
money
it
in
to
here.
WCI
It's
rep?
gonna be
But it's just
controversial.
after you.
No, I just send it directly on to the
Every year.
Okay, so that's probably it, because none of those have turned over yet, so the president
We don't
would be a,
even have
would be a
them.
WCI person.
Back to square one.
Because even Hampton Park hasn't turned over yet, so theirs
Or
is.
even if I could have that,
Funding a reserve.
so,
and
like,
Okay,
if-
good.
so like right now, we're involved with the
What I
Kiro
don't
project.
know.
We'll talk some more.
Yeah.
Or,
Okay,
yeah, the
Thank you,
RS
thank you.
line into the
Thank
pool.
you.
that was a good meeting.
Town and
And
weather.
there's gonna be lots of
Stephen
locates and stuff going
Hi
on.
there.
We wanna put that out to all the communities.
Okay,
Yeah,
But
I have
have
to-
some
He's aware of this.
contact.
Not volunteer for,
Okay,
All
so,
hypothetical until we really got some.
I
probably.
So we
put
had-
it on my
we-
Facebook page.
Yeah.
We're getting a pink, once we get to the point where we can do
Because then
it.
when she would put it out, it'd be out to all the
She-
residents.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna do any good sending it to WCI.
now.
They won't
And
do
the
that.
license are looking at.
So you have us, I'll just give you kind of a breakdown of who we're using for what communities, but, what is that, what did I put?
We think to do everything we want to do is gonna be
Hampton Park,
about
and
1.6
then
million.
any of the new ones. in
One
Park.
point-
Yeah, it's gotta be done.
Okay, I can do
But,
that.
and Phil's trying to figure out when he
And
wanted
we
to
get
do it.
1.6.
Found that out
Because my website
days later. he
a
threw a
mess.
blood clot.
Got hacked.
And so.
You know, that's
he was in the
horrible.
hospital
Cause I went on there
and
one
now
time,
he's on blood
everything was
thinners.
gone, I was like,
Yeah,
I was telling him,
all
go back and read all the
that
minutes, and
hard.
he's like, there's not
So
any.
he comes
If
off,
you need
That's the
something,
same number.
I'll
Never mind.
contact
Yep.
you. I never,
so once he.
And that's how we're
I
looking
can't
at it, and then
post
we know
anything
Then
out
we'll be
there.
able to know
neighborhood
My
by neighborhood.
plugins,
when we can schedule.
Oh,
So
well,
tentatively
yeah.
scheduled it
All that
February,
work.
but if
In
he's.
the
still
appeal,
not
Well, really,
there's
we
still
have
a 96
he
on
can't
it.
the
take
web
his payment.
designer
And all
did that
96
of
site
them
and
had
it's
front
just
drainage.
like
With the
missing an
40 of
inch.
them have
the
rear
blood
drainage.
Can't
thinners.
locate it.
Some have
And he
bubblers.
never-
So like
So,
today, he
for
had
that
a
particular
yesterday and the day before.
neighborhood, we
he
think
had
we're
a
100% done.
So that's why it happened.
So
So
some
we
neighborhoods
got
require
someone
more
else
than
to go
others,
and at least
but then when you get out
get
to
it
the
to,
new
get rid of the
suburb,
virus
it gets
and
quite a bit.
make it secure.
All of
Well,
these don't
Get us
have
out
the
of
drainage,
first one
like
so
he
we're
had,
gonna have
he
to put
was
some
like
drainages,
40
we don't know what
solid.
they're doing.
So we
So-
prevented all this from
Yeah,
happening.
just.
And this 100% for
Hopefully
that,
by the
there's
first
particular
year we'll have
neighborhood,
it
everybody's on a
right.
pond is there.
Good.
But
Not
now they've got
everybody
to
goes to the
Model
street.
at that point for somebody
all
as
that
active
down.
as he
Yeah.
was to just put
So
a
we went
smaller
through
Months.
top on
I
it.
feel for you.
Keep the bottom, because the bottom is in
To the
good
96
shape, put a
homes
smaller
that
top
have-
on it.
You guys
Well,
just need to hire
Well,
someone.
why is
to
it
do
49?
that website.
And 47 of them have, two of them don't, five don't have bubblers, 33
You're like,
of
you
them
better.
need some place to work. Everybody's got the gutters, 34.
Last time he popped it out, we were on a
So
Hawaiian.
each individual
we were on the Hawaiian
neighborhood is a little bit
Islands,
different.
and
They're all
we
not
were out
100%
at
the
sea
same.
when it happened.
But you know, that's-
Fortunately, we docked at Hilo the next
That's
day,
good,
and they
yeah,
the
yeah.
ambulance met us,
If you're
took him
affecting
to the hospital on election day.
Good luck with that.
They get
And,
involved in this.
that's
I
all
feel
right.
bad.
What
What
you
are you
do,
gonna
have
do?
his hip put back in.
And that won't be worth talking about.
But,
Then you-
That won't be worth talking, that's just gonna do it.
got in touch
The
with
new neighborhoods
his
where we're
daughter.
going. But the one thing we need
Said
sign in for the
as
homeowners
soon as
is to
he
allocate